Hi everybody, I'm Leif Jackson. I lead the content team here at Cybrary. I'm here with our world famous instructor, Kelly Handerhan. I'm sure you've seen her quite a bit online. She's come here to share her story with us, and so we're really excited to have you today, Kelly. Thanks for coming along.
Great, thanks, Leif. I am excited to be here. As you know, I've been working with Cybrary for quite a while. It's one of the favorite things that I do, so I'd love to help you reach out to other instructors and see if we can pass along some ideas.
Absolutely. So tell me about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Greensboro, and any of you that have seen my CISSP class know exactly how I feel about North Carolina. I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina. And I've been up in the D.C. area since about 2003. I moved up here for a job, so from North Carolina till I was about 30.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So tell me about your career. What was your first job?
My first job was in a Food Lion, which is a fine grocery store.
There you go.
And bagging groceries and ringing them up.
Gotcha. And so what did you do after that?
Flailed around spectacularly, mostly. I was a late bloomer, as one would say, and I went to college in 5 different places for about a total of 4 months. I like to hop around. Couldn't quite find my niche. I tend to be a little bit attentionally challenged, as you probably know. So I'd go in, do really well at school for the first 4 weeks, and then my attention would just crash off. So I joke about in 4 months, but over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years, I went to 5 different schools for multiple, I was going to be an English major. Nobody was going to pay me to go to their office and recite poetry. So had to find something else. But, up until I was 27 or 28, I was waiting tables. That was my primary job, primary thing for income.
Gotcha. So you were waiting tables, and then what started your teaching career? What really started you teaching?
Yeah, so at that point in time, I just landed in a technical school in North Carolina for computer science. Okay. And I'd gone
about
through,
when you were 27, 28?
Yep, right around 27 or 28. I was still waiting tables, but I was going to some classes. And there was a company in North Carolina called Icon Office Solutions. I mean, they're worldwide, so, but... and a friend of mine, actually one of the other wait staff there, said, you're good with computers. You should call them and see, because they were running ads constantly that they were short for people. And it's funny that she assumed I was good with computers, because it's not like I had a computer waiting tables, but I think I would talk about them and things. It was an interest.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you've always been interested in computers in the past? At
a very high level. I wouldn't say it's a passion of mine. It's an interest. But it's not ever something, sometimes a student will say, hey, did you read the latest No. I have a set amount of courses and seminars and webinars and things that I do to stay current.
Yeah.
But as far as going home from work at 10 o'clock at night thinking, I want to read a computer manual, that's not me.
Gotcha.
I am, so
you obviously got the role.
I did. And actually the way I got the role was I called and I got the head of the IT department, and I pretty much just said, look, I'm not a technical person right now. I have an interest. I'll work the hours you want me to work, and I'll work them for cheap. And he said, well, that's what we're looking for. So in sometimes if you go into an organization and you say, look, I'm willing to learn, I personally would rather hire somebody that's willing to learn than somebody that comes in knowing it all.
Gotcha.
And I think I did a good job communicating that to him.
Absolutely.
And what I did to get some things on my resume prior to going in, because you hate to go in with a blank resume, is I volunteered to do some networking at a women's shelter.
Oh, okay.
And I did some training there. And I found as soon as I started that it was something I really enjoyed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What drew you to that initially?
To teaching?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm one of those people that's an armchair quarterback.
Okay.
You sit there and think, oh, I would have done it differently. But I've had so many IT classes. I think of one programming class in specific where the instructor was so technical. He basically was writing on the board the whole time. And he was brilliant, I know, but I couldn't follow him at all. And so, I would go do the work at home and I'd think, is that all he was saying? Mm-hmm. And just thinking about how convoluted some very, very basic ideas can get. And I thought, I feel like I could explain things. maybe in an easier to understand method.
Gotcha. And then, so what was like your first teaching?
My first teaching class, my very first class was Excel 95. And we capped it off at 12 students, and we had all 12. This was, obviously a little bit ago. And I remember I was so nervous that I only got 3 hours sleep the night before. And I walked out of that class thinking, this is what I'll do for the rest of my life. And it has been, I just loved it that much. So I really now consider myself more of an instructor than a tech person.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy tech and I still stay in the field, but my passion is actually taking tech and communicating it to others.
Gotcha. And how old were you when you had that first class?
28-ish.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 28,
Okay, so
29.
right
It was
around
pretty
the same
close because I was doing that while I was working at Icon also.
Gotcha. And so then you started teaching more regularly at that point.
I did. I enjoyed that so much. I started asking, hey, this trainer this client has purchased this product. Can I go out and help them figure it out? And of course, that was very welcome because that was a nice liaison between the client. And I just found it was something that I loved to do. So I moved over to a company at the time called ExecuTrain.
Okay.
And I continued to teach office products. And then I decided it was time to go technical. So I went into, at the time, it was Windows NT. It was Novell 3.1. And I was way in over my head, but for whatever reason, I just studied. I put in the work, the blood, sweat, and tears, and I got certified. And that was really a big life changer. At the risk of sounding hokey, the best thing I've ever done for my career was get certified. And I really just have to tell folks that are watching, I don't mean that to be hokey. It was the best thing that I did, which is part of the reason I have such a passion for teaching. I like to take something that was so meaningful to me and try to make it available to others.
Absolutely.
So,
and so you were on technology products.
Right.
Now, when did you make kind of the switch into cybersecurity, or did you go into management first?
What I always say, it's hard to be in IT in any fashion without being in cybersecurity.
Right.
Because you're always thinking about security, and even if your business card doesn't say so. So I started really getting fascinated, particularly once NT Windows went to Active Directory, because the amount of power you had with group policy.
Right.
And then I started studying some Microsoft specific products and, spent a little time with Unix and Linux, but I found that most of the people wanted assistance with Windows. A lot of the companies that I was working with, were migrating from Novell into a Windows environment. So I got a lot of work there.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And so you were teaching more on the IT side, right?
Yes, server administration from
Gotcha.
NT through 2008. But they're specific, actually really through 2010 with Microsoft products. And there are specific security products that I was really enjoying teaching. I was enjoying teaching about Radius and Microsoft's firewall product, which is ISIS server. I love DNS and DHCP, particularly in the means where you realize how vulnerable they are. So all the tricks and the things that you have to go through to really create some security on those products. And then I got into Cisco for a little while, and I guess really moved into more management role around 2010.
Yeah.
And so from that point in time, I'd been in cybersecurity a little bit, moving to management. And then, we really started seeing the threat landscape change so much. Around, 2010 is when I think of just so many events happening, not just, individually with organizations, but geopolitically, just hacktivism started becoming more and more popular. So I did move over more to cybersecurity and then kind of branched that into management.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So around 2010 is when you branched into management.
Yep.
Basically. And how did you do that?
Along the way, when you're in the training field, you kind of realize that certain certifications, you pay attention enough, that certain certifications are, going to be around to stay. So there were a couple of managerial certs that I think really helped me. The CISSP was one.
Yeah. Not
that it's just, a managerial cert, but it really speaks to the fact that you know what you purport to know.
Right.
And so I had already kind of established myself as a team lead, even though it wasn't official. I had some leadership skills, and hopefully I was demonstrating those on the job. So I got my first job as network head engineer, lead engineer. Mm-hmm. And then just was continuing to work for other companies in more of as a consultant, so kind of a project management role.
Right.
And that's where I felt like I'm best. I moved up here to work for Foreign Service Institute for a couple of years, but I found I'm a better private sector employee than a government employee. So I moved back, and I've been working for myself since about 2014, and now I have my own company, and we're doing pretty well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so you started for yourself in 2014. What made you make that leap?
Actually, you know what? It was 2012.
Yeah.
It was even longer than that. And at that point in time, as a consultant, I was on either short-term jobs or long-term jobs at places I didn't like. I was locked into a contract. I had one position where I had to travel, and I love to travel, but I don't want to spend 8 weeks in Chillicothe, Ohio.
Right.
In the middle of winter.
No.
Lovely town, don't want to offend, but it's at the base of a paper mill, so you can just imagine the smell in the mornings there. And I wanted more control of my career. I wanted more control about where I do, and I was terrified. And everybody asked me, job security, are you scared?
Especially in this area, right?
Absolutely. In D.C., everybody wants to work for the government, but we just had a government shutdown of over a month. And I worked the entire period through that. So I think sometimes we get that assurance of, that monthly paycheck, and any company can go out of business. Any company can have a strike or a shutdown or whatever. And as long as I have kept myself available to work with whatever companies I want to, it's been good.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so when did you find Cybrary initially?
It's interesting because I have been part of Cybrary since the very beginning. Yeah. I was doing some training with TrainAce, and I was doing I had established kind of a relationship with some of with the marketing director at TrainAce at the time. And, he brought me into his office one day and, put me through the full non-disclosure. I've got this great idea. And I have to tell you, the first thought, while he was telling me, we're going to get trainers in here and we're going to produce classes and we're going to sell them for nothing. And I really couldn't help but, I was just nodding. That's a great idea, Ryan. I need some coffee. I'll go. And that was my first thought is, why in the world would you go through all of this effort and energy for nothing? And then, of course, the more I worked with Cybrary, the more I was on board with kind of the mission and the values. So something that I'm really glad that I did, and that I wasn't too dismissive up front.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So tell me about those early days. So so obviously you listen to Ryan, you're like, okay, I'm going to do some courses. Tell me about the process.
So in the early days, we didn't have a lot of processes in place. As a matter of fact, if there are any of those old remnant classes that are still out there that look like they were conducted with a little telescope camera with very little.
There are a few
lighting. Yeah. There's one or two. I'm getting rid of all mine, though. I'm updating.
We're looking for folks to change it. By the way,
this is why we need instructors. You knew that the environment wasn't as savvy, but then you couldn't help but get into some of the excitement, because what I found is early users understood that if you're selling a product for nothing, that you don't have the high-end, Vegas studio. So people were really patient with us. And the thing that has been consistent is every week do something just a little bit better, fix one little problem. And I think any startup goes through that, but I've just seen Cybrary continue to march. So that's been something that's been exciting to see.
Gotcha. And so what were some of the first classes that you taught?
I think the very first class I taught was end user security basics. And it wasn't even it was just a vocal over screenshots. And then I went in pretty early into the CISSP, was the first real mainstream course I taught here. I'd been teaching it for years, and we knew that was a popular course.
Sure.
I knew it was.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And it helped you in your career, so you figured it'd be...
that was the best thing. That's the best thing that I've gotten from Cybrary. It's one of the things I've gotten from Cybrary is a lot of name recognition. I do not walk into a class today, and I teach all over the country, where somebody in that class doesn't know me. Every class I've taught in the last couple of years, every single class, somebody says, wait, you're the person from... And then I always want to know, well, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? But I get recognized all the time.
And when did that start? Was it
Very gradually.
Okay.
It happened that, I was teaching a class in Columbia.
Okay.
Not associated with somewhere I'd been before.
When was this? Just out of curiosity.
This was probably 2015, 16.
Okay. So maybe
Does that sound right? It was pretty early on.
Year and a half after the first course.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I ran into somebody who said, are you the person from Cybrary? And I was really surprised because honestly, I had my doubts of just were we going to be able to pull this off and reach people,
right.
And so getting recognized outside of the training center was surprising to me.
Yeah.
And then probably one of the biggest surprises is I went to the Washington Wizards basketball game, and I was going to get a drink, and somebody, we got 30,000 people there, and somebody, as I was walking back to my seat, said, are you Kelly Handerhan? And my first thought was oh my God, am I being followed here? She was not a stalker, but she was a Cybrary student and had recognized me. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was pretty good name recognition. And now I will get people that call me for work specifically. I saw your stuff on Cybrary. We were wondering if you could come out here and do a class. Yeah.
And what kinds of people call you?
It really is across the board now. It really, I've got the most recent one that I've gotten is I'm going to work for a contractor out in Columbia and do a Security Plus class. I've had the Hartford. I've had Capital One. I've just had some great clients.
Wow.
Really reach out to me. And it's pretty exciting because once you start building a clientele, then it becomes easier and easier and easier to reach out because now you have a portfolio.
Right.
So
you initially found clients through Cybrary. They called you, and so do you do outbound marketing as well, or do you mostly take inbound?
You know what? I don't do marketing. As much as I want to have my own business, as in work for myself, I don't like to actually do the work part.
Yeah.
So I'm not a salesperson. I'm not going to knock on doors. But what I've found is the longer I'm here, word of mouth, and even if that's not the case, doing repeating work, or when I go out and teach a class now, I can say, you know what, if you miss a day of class, we've got you on Cybrary, go watch that video. And now it becomes a really big sales tool for me because I can say all the classes that I teach are recorded on Cybrary. So if you miss one, go back here and watch the crypto day or whatever it is.
And we're talking to some creators here. So can you talk just a little bit about how your business has grown over the years? Yeah,
it's been phenomenal. So like I said, the first year or two, I was working for myself just because it was easier and it just fit my lifestyle a little better. And so do you want dollars or size? How can I?
Your choice.
Yeah. So as an instructor, I was probably, about close to six figures, but didn't break that for quite a while. And then as I got a little bit more of a reputation in the training industry, I was able to charge a little bit more. Evaluations get better, the more you know, the more people you know, the more jobs you can get. But one of the things I will tell you is I never, the first year I was here at Cybrary, and what's interesting is it's not from Cybrary. As you can imagine, we weren't getting paid a whole lot to work for Cybrary at that time. But maybe within a year of working at Cybrary, I broke 200,000 for the first time,
Wow.
and my business now last year did almost $500,000, which was
Wow.
huge for me, especially because Leaf knows me. I don't have a lot of managerial skills, so that's purely training. There's no marketing, and quite honestly, I had about 18 weeks off last year. This is the best career in the world if you can do it, but not everybody can do it. If you can do it and enjoy it, that passion carries over to your clients, and your clients appreciate it, and then you start getting word of mouth. So it's not one of those things that I say everybody can go here and start your own business, and and every year I've steadily climbed, hit 185, then 230, and then 350 the year before, and then 450 last year.
Wow.
Because I've nabbed a couple of really big clients. So that's been amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
personally so proud of you for this.
I appreciate it.
And we love that you keep coming back to us to continue to teach as well. And hopefully it continues to feed your business. Like that's really fantastic.
Absolutely.
Have a couple fun questions for
Sure,
you,
bring
right?
them. Bring
So tell me your favorite student story from Cybrary.
Oh, I got to think about that one. Well, I tell you, I don't have a particular student, but let me just tell you. Recently I taught a CISSP class that was live online. And so we had maybe 50, 60 students that were coming in. So
It's on a website you guys are familiar with.
That's right. Oh,
yes.
And if you haven't tried Cybrary, please give it a try. No, I was wondering what you were laughing at, and I was like, duh. So at any rate, I had a death in the family that required that I leave. And I'll bet you I had 30 different students contact me and wish me well, and they would bring things up from the class that they liked. So on one hand, I had this really hard, sad time, and then I'd go to my email and see somebody across the world just say, "Hey, Kelly, I'm thinking about you," and they might say something local that meant God bless, or you're in our prayers, or thoughts, something that was just you don't hear every day, and it was so special. It was really meaningful to me. So that's my favorite. Just that compilation of students that all reached out beyond what they were doing and could see me as a person, not just as somebody reading a textbook to them. So I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought so.
So you enjoyed the live format then?
I loved it. Loved the live format.
Tell me a little bit about what are your most common asked for courses now?
CISSP by far.
Okay.
PMP, which I love teaching also. CISM, C-Risk. I've just started getting requests for CISA for auditors. So those are the big ones that I'm seeing a lot. Occasionally I'll get something on the periphery, Security Plus from time to time, but usually I'm kind of up at those managerial level classes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we're speaking to a number of potential creators or creators on our site. What would be your biggest tips for them to become the next Kelly Handerhan?
Aim higher, first of all. My second tip would be just don't ever forget why you're doing this. It's not so that you can sound smart in front of a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. You got 300 people watching you feel kind of smart. But the whole purpose is we're taking this information and we're sharing it with folks in a way that's hopefully meaningful. And, I hate melodrama, but it can be life-changing. When you go from a career you're not interested in and find your niche, or if you get that break in the career you're in because you have a certification suddenly. So I think we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, right? And just to have some empathy for the students. Go back to that time when you didn't know what you were doing and try to put yourself in that student's place and think, what was the time this made sense to me? And how can I take this subnetting or Kerberos or, whatever those elements are and make it manageable for a student that doesn't have the 20 years experience or whatever. So I think the two big things are empathy and a little bit of sense of humor. Just being able to say, I'm not that important. Let's just Let's just talk about this,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that carries over to students a lot.
Gotcha.
Students appreciate that relationship, and if you have that relationship, it's easier to convey ideas, I think.
So it's really important that you're empathetic, on camera, even though you're not actually speaking with the students directly.
That's why I like the live online
Yeah.
format, is because they still communicate.
Right.
So even with their text, you get a sense of who folks are. So
Gotcha.
that's fun for me.
Gotcha. That's cool. What about teaching efficiency? So what advice would you give to a creator that's looking to create like the most effective teaching style possible?
You know, I think people have to be engaged.
Mhm.
And so the lecture style is only effective if you can reel folks back in. And, you know, if any of you guys have seen any of my videos, sometimes it sounds like I ramble, but I ramble very purposefully. So if I'm going to introduce Cybrarys, I talk about it like a carnival.
Right.
And I give just a snippet of a story leading up to that. But what's actually happening if you study education, adult education specifically, is you got to let people have their minds have a break,
Yeah.
right? You can't just all of a sudden get your pens, I'm going to speak for 2 hours on technical stuff, go. So, you know, you talk technical, then you bring them down a little bit. And you got to pull people in with questions. You know, it's funny because I'll be teaching something I love and I'm so excited, and I look at everybody and they're kind of glazed over. And then I segue into a new topic with a funny story, and people all of a sudden look up when I start talking about the Cybrarys Carnival or whatever.
Right.
So the important part is giving the illusion of being interactive, even if you're just talking to a camera. Ask a question and stop and pause, right? And the hardest thing for me to learn was when I ask you a question, I've got to stop and wait. I've got to give you at home time to process what I've asked. You know, to say, hey guys, do you have any questions? Which is why I have the prop, the coffee mug. That makes sure that I give people pause. Do you guys have any questions? What do you think? So, you know, just having some ways to make it comfortable and homey and friendly and not intimidated. It's not about how smart I am. Nobody here cares.
Yeah.
You know, nobody out there cares.
Yeah, I especially like that about your teaching style, that the fact that you're able to ask questions to the audience, you're able to stop, pause, and also add anecdotes where, you know, the material can sometimes be a little dry, right? Like as you're going through. And then when I watch your videos, it's like, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
Well, I hope so. You know, I think it also helps if you can laugh at yourself a little bit,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and if you've got a funny story about something you did stupid, people appreciate that, you
Yeah.
know, so we learn from our mistakes better than our successes, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us today. Really appreciate the advice that you gave our creators and our potential creators out there. Congratulations on the success of your business. We're so excited that we could be a proud part of it, and we look forward to continuing to grow you on our site. In terms of next steps, Kelly recorded a top 10 list podcast with us. So if you want to find out some of her favorite things, it's the place to be.